Okay, so today's lesson is mostly about graphing lines, finding their slopes, and talking about the different types of forms of lines, okay? So on this first one, here we have the three different formats of line equations, okay? And what I want to do is name which one, which one is which. What type of line equation is this? Do you guys remember the name of that? This one's standard form. Okay? That one's standard form. How about the second one? Good. I'm glad you guys remember that one. Slope-intercept. Okay? And what's this last one called? Do you guys remember that one? You don't probably use it as much. S? Oh, no, it's P. First letter is a P. Point slope. Okay? So that's point slope form. Okay, so what we're going to do is first of all talk about graphing lines with the intercept, just the intercepts. And the easiest form to graph lines with just the intercepts is this format, which is called what again? Standard format, okay? So I want to first graph the y-intercept. In order to do that, I'm going to put in a 0 for x. So if I do that, it'll be 5 times 0 plus 3y equals 15. Yes. So basically this cancels out. You divide both sides by 3 and you get y equals 5. Okay? So if I graph that, that's on the y-axis, my 5 is right here and I'll put a dot there. Okay? Second part is the x-intercept. And I will do the same thing, but I'm going to put 0 in for what? Yep. 0 in for the y. Okay? So I'll have 5x plus 3 times 0 equals 15. Now this one cancels out. If I divide both sides by 5, I get what? X equals 3. So I come over on my x-axis and put a dot on the 3. The next part's really easy. All you're going to do is connect the dots to make your line. And I just want you guys to remember that there should be an arrow at both ends of this because it's a line that's going on forever. Okay? So that is the intercept method. You just put in zeros and find your points. Okay, so as you guys recall, the slope of a line is the rise over the run. How far you go up or down over how far you go to the right. The run is always going this way. The rise is always going up or down. If you have a negative, it goes down. Okay? And you're looking at, if you have 2 points, I'm going to call it x1, y1, and x2, y2. If you have 2 points, this is the formula on how you find your slope. Often it is written like this. Have you guys seen it in this way before? Okay. Do you know what those triangles mean? They mean change. And to interpret it in math words, it's called delta. Okay. That's the Greek letter delta. So delta y, delta x, and it means change, which is the rate of change, right? Okay, so next year when you guys are taking college algebra, probably your professors will always just use the word delta, and you should know what that means. You have 2 points here and 2 points here. I'm going to find the slope of the first one, and then I'm going to have you guys do the slope of the second one, and we'll check, okay? So the first one, I'm going to label these. This is my first point, x and y. And this is my second point, x2, y2. So my y's are always on the top, and I'm taking the second one minus the first one. It'll be 1 minus a minus 2, and I'm sorry, minus, oh, I messed up already. Yes, I'm sorry. Minus 3. And then 2 minus a minus 2. Okay, so 1 minus 2 is what? 1 minus 3. I'm already discombobulated, aren't I? 1 minus 3 is a negative 2. And then what happens to these two? Yeah, you end up adding them because there's 2 negatives in a row. So this ends up being 2 plus 2, and it's a 4. If I reduce that, it's a negative 1/2. So this is my slope for that. I'm going to pause this right now, and I want you guys to figure out what this one is. Okay? Okay, so you guys should have gotten this. 7 minus 5 over 5 minus 2, which is 12 divided by 3, which is 4. That's your slope for that. There are 4 different kinds of slopes. You can have a negative slope, you can have a positive slope, you can have an undefined slope, or you can have a 0 slope. What I want to do now is label which one is which on this one. So, this first one, which would that be? This one's going to be a positive slope. How about the next one? This one's negative. And one way to remember that is if you drew 2 lines on this, it makes an N. Okay, so if you need a way to remember that, the negative slope always can make an N. Okay? This one is considered what? Nope, not positive. 0. 0 slope. It's not gaining or decreasing, right? This one, nope. This one's undefined. And you know what? I have found over the years that students get these two mixed up the most. Okay? So I'm going to give you a way to remember this. If you're walking, say you're taking a hike, and you're walking up towards a cliff, and you happen to not see the cliff, and you step over it, what happens to you? You die. But not only that, you become undefined. Okay? You have lost all definition at that point because you go splat. Okay? So while that is a violent way to remember this, you probably won't forget it now. Okay? So that is one way to remember which one is undefined. Moving on. Oh, yeah. The next form of line I want to talk about is the slope-intercept form of the line. And here we have that. Question for you, what does M stand for? Slope. Okay, what does B stand for? The y-intercept. Good. So basically, when we are graphing these, we are first going to graph the y-intercept. That's point number 1. Second, we're going to take that slope and find our next point by doing our rise over run, and then we'll plot the second point, and then we'll connect our dots. So let's do that with this one. What is my slope in this case? It's 3, or my rise is 3. What's my run? 1. 3 over 1 is the same as 3. And my y-intercept is what? -4. Okay? So my first point I'm going to graph on this is a -4. I'm going to need to scroll down a little. So if I go down to my y-intercept, I put a point there. What's my next thing I have to do? Rise over run. Good. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. You only need 2 dots to make a line. You could go again if you want from here. Rise of 3 over 1. You don't have to though. If you're using a ruler, that's probably the best way to make a good line. But it should look something like this. Okay? Our next point, is this in slope-intercept form? It isn't. So what do we have to do first to get it in slope-intercept form? Yeah, we got to solve for y. So my first step is to get everything away from the y on this side of the equation. And in order to do that, I got to subtract a 2x from both sides. Okay? So now I have 5y equals negative 2x plus 15. What would be my next step? Okay, so now we're at this point. What do I have to do to both sides to solve for y? Divide by 5. So if I divide everything by 5, I have y equals negative 2/5 x plus 3. Okay, so my first point I'm going to graph on this is what? The 3. So if I go up to 3, I plot a point there, and then I need to take my slope, which in this case, actually it's down 2. Yep, not left, but right. So if I go down 2, it's always to the right. Go down 2 over 5. Okay? So your run is always going to the right. But if you have a negative for your rise, that means you'll go down. Okay? And there you are. And remember, this is actually 2 arrows. I'm not sure why this is not graphing another arrow there. Okay, for the last one, I'm going to take 1 minute. I'm going to pause this, and I want you guys to figure this out on your own. Try to graph it. Okay, take a minute to do that. So I'm solving for y here. And what you needed to do is subtract 3x from both sides. And you have negative 5y equals negative 3x. Divide by negative 5. And what happens to our negatives? They cancel, right? So this ends up being y equals just 3/5 x. But here's the tricky part. Where do I put my first point? At 0, right? Because there's no y-intercept according to this. It's really plus 0. So if I put 0 here, and then I have a rise of 3, 1, 2, 3, and run of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's my point right here. And I draw a line. There we go. Okay? So today what we covered was the different types: standard, slope intercept, and point slope, which we didn't cover much today. We talked about graphing by intercept, graphing by slope and slope intercept. So that's what your assignment is for today, is to look at those things, and we'll have a warm up on that tomorrow.